Good morning. Welcome to another Saturday workshop at the Anti-Fragility Health Clinic in our Anaheim office. Welcome to all of you who are joining from Vietnam, from the East Coast, from San Francisco, and people who are still in traffic coming. We appreciate your company. We appreciate your partnership. Thank you for joining us. Last week, we're talking about, we have been journeying through what we call the wellness architecture. So I'll just go through that briefly. So we look at wellness, and we have been exploring 4 issues around wellness. We started with environmental wellness. And in environmental wellness, we looked at 2 things. We looked at toxicity, and then we look at the benefits of actually being outside in the environment. The sun, the air, the forests, and all the benefits of that. But as our environment gets very complicated, there are issues of toxicity, and therefore we have a detox program that supports the removal of heavy metals and toxic metals, including all the things like viruses, infections, molds, and all the things that come into our system and interfere with wellness. So that was number 1. Number 2, we looked at physical wellness. And in physical wellness, we explored a couple of things. We explored stability, balance, flexibility, and strength, or what I'll call stamina, right? We looked at 4 important aspects of physical wellness that are very critical for you to have optimized wellness. And that was number 2. Number 3, we looked at emotional wellness. And with emotional wellness, we looked at 2 important things. We were looking at the overall issues of sleep and stress. So when we explore emotions, we are looking at issues of sleep and issues of stress. And these are 2 critical areas where the hormones actually drive our ability to actually achieve wellness. Last week, we were in the 4th area, which is nutritional wellness. And in the area of nutritional wellness, we've looked at a couple of things, and I'm just going to go over that today so that you get a complete sense of what we've been working through. We wanted to initially talk about, as a summary, our key focus is on functional and lifestyle interventions. That is the key focus of this clinic. And what's functional medicine? It's the medicine that looks at the whole person. The whole underlying biochemistry is interrelated. Traditional medicine, or what I'll call Western medicine, would look at the heart, or the muscles, or the lungs, or the eye and nose and ear, or the brain, and look at them as disjointed organs with specializations, or your dental. In functional medicine, we are looking at everything to have a comprehensive understanding of your state of wellness. And so that's what we focus on. And the number 1 issue that we explore when we talk about nutrition are 2 fundamental things that are required for understanding. One is the metabolic reserve, and we will just talk about that briefly so that everyone is reminded that the metabolic reserve is the ability or the capability we have for actually building a nutrient support that's going to allow us to actually respond in the long term in the event of famine. The architecture of the human being was built around, over the centuries, around feast and famine. And during the feasting period, we built the reserves that were needed for the famine period. So the metabolic reserve is the reserves that the body builds to respond when there will be issues of stress or nutrient deficiency. So metabolic reserve is a very critical component of our survival. And the second principle is what we call the physiological resilience. And what's physiological resilience? It is the ability or the capability or the capacity for us to meet present requirements. Say, for example, our fight or flight response is a physiological resilience requirement because it requires us to respond in the present. A sustained response is then supported by our metabolic reserve. It's very important that we understand that. These are the two principal issues around the nutritional architecture. So last week, we then spoke about a couple of things. Number one, we spoke about macronutrients. And we discovered that there are actually 5 big macronutrients. And I'll list them and then we'll talk about some issues around those nutrients. So we have number 1 are proteins, number 2 are carbohydrates, number 3 are fats, and the 2 extra ones we've added, which is now in the literature, it's kind of surprising. Number 4 is water, and number 5 is fiber. So these are the 5 macronutrients. And what are macronutrients? So let's talk about what is a macronutrient. A macronutrient is the way nature delivers calories and nutrients to our bodies in a macro format. That is, there is calories, which is the energy component, and there are nutrients. So those are 2 different things. In American culture, people think calories is nutrients. No, they're 2 separate things. So macronutrients are packed with calories and nutrients. And therefore, when we talk about macronutrients, we're always exploring the overall energy and the nutrient composition of it. So we are looking at the energy and the nutrient composition in terms of determining what the optimal intake would be. And then we use language like the glycemic impact. The glycemic impact speaks about the energy part of it, which is the sugar that is in that macronutrient. And we also talk about the total energy content, which is the total amount of calories. So whenever you do your body composition, very important you understand this, whenever you do your body composition, it gives you the total energy requirements, basal metabolic rate at rest, and the total activity rate. The activity rate is the energy requirement for the body when the body is moving, and the basal metabolic rate is when the body is resting or sleeping. So those 2 tells you what for you as that individual, for your age, weight, and height, and sex, what that metabolic total energy requirements are. And they are driven by how active your body is. And it's all different for each of us. But in a summary sense, the overall metabolic rate, high metabolic rate, activity metabolic rate for men is around 2,500. and the basal metabolic rate for men is around 1800. And it's typically higher for men than for women. So when we look at macronutrients, we are looking at the nutrient composition of them, and we're looking at the energy composition of them. You could survive only on nutrients, but you need the energy component that is going to be required for physiological resilience. So a lot of the calories are required for physiological resilience. What's that? For the immediate response. The energy requirements that are in the metabolic reserve tend to be the fats, because when the body runs out of sugar or carbohydrates to make energy and proteins, it then looks for the fat reserves and converts the fat in the mitochondria to ATP. So the body uses proteins, carbohydrates, and fats to create energy. So whenever you feel low energy, or you feel like you are not, you're tired, those are all signs of a low energy output. And typically it would lead, if it's chronic, to what we call mitochondrial dysfunction, with the body not being able to produce energy as required for the body. And that is why sleep is very important, because when we sleep, all the energy output is then used for the cleaning and the healing and the repair that is required. When we are awake, that metabolic rate goes up, because just being awake requires a lot of energy than being asleep. So the basal and the activity metabolic rates tend to be significantly different, about 800-900 calorie different. Just being awake requires a lot more energy. So it's important we understand that, why rest and sleep is important, to give the body time to heal, to use the energy for healing rather than for movement or for being aware and being alert. It's very important. So we have the 5 big macronutrients: proteins, carbohydrates, fats, water, and fiber. So now let's talk about the micronutrients, and then we will also look at some functionally essential nutrients. So again, I'm summarizing what we did last week, so I'm going very quickly. So let's look at our micronutrients. Where did I keep my duster? So let's look very quickly at micronutrients. And micronutrients are in 3 or 4 groups. So let's look at micronutrients. Right? So we have macro and micro. Micro are already broken down. They are not as complex as macronutrients. Typically, micronutrients come at a pure level of the nutrient without the extra loading of the energy component, which tends to be carbohydrates. So in the first group, we have vitamins. And we have vitamin A, we have B. B is complex. So we have B1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and then I think 9 and 12. Right? Those are the B vitamins. Then we have C, D, E, K. Those are the vitamins. So it's important that we know them, and they are all critical nutrients for survival. And interestingly, the body has what we call a proportional amount that is required for the body to actually to be optimized in its performance. So we have what we call upper, lower limits, and upper limit requirements for all of these vitamins. In the second group, we have minerals. And the minerals are as follows. We have calcium, chromium, and copper. Calcium, chromium, and copper. We have Iodine and iron. Iodine and iron. We have magnesium, manganese, and molybdenum. And we have phosphorus and I can't read my own writing. And we have selenium and we have zinc. So we have all these minerals. And typically when you come to our clinic and we run your urine samples with doctor's data, it would give us the toxicity levels for heavy metals, which is the environmental issue, but it will also give us the levels of the active essential minerals which are in your urine. And that extracted level gives us a sense of how much would be inside your body. So it's very important you understand that. And then number 3, there are some extra essential nutrients that the body also needs, and they are complex fatty acids, omega-3 and omega-6. Typically in Western diet, we have a lot of omega-6. So typically we need some complicated fatty acids, omega-3s. We need choline. I have phosphatidylcholine there, which is a very important phospholipid in addressing our membrane integrity. So we have plaque X IV that Enda has taken. It's a very critical element. We have inositol, which is also a critical element for brain function and for our biological sexual function. We have carnitine. Carnitine is another protein, amino acid, which is very critical. We have CQ10, coenzyme Q10, which is an antioxidant, very critical for removing reactive oxygen species from the cells. And then we have and phospholipids and some lipoproteins. Okay, so this gives us a broad view of what I was discussing last week with regard to nutritional wellness. Just a couple of final points before we go into the next part of nutritional wellness today is that the body, every cell, has an architecture for what we call nutrient sensing. So even before we eat, the cell is sensing which nutrients are available and therefore what it's going to be able to make to support the body. So don't forget that cellular function is really about metabolism. It's about taking nutrients and manufacturing the things that the body needs. That is really at its core, right? The complex proteins, the complex fatty acids, the complex glucosides that are required for optimal body function. That is really the critical requirement. So we have what we call nutrient sensing, but on the other side, there is this big conversation about what is the optimal nutrient requirements. And for each of us, it's very different because it's driven by age, by sex, by our genetic predispositions, but also by our activity level. And so optimal nutrient or optimal intake is a really challenging issue. And therefore, nutritional wellness is a very, very important issue to pay attention to, because the consequences of nutrient deficiency is significant. So if your body needs carnitine or omega-3 and it does not have enough persistently, that's the beginning of chronic illness. So this is a very, very important issue, understanding what your nutritional requirements are and getting the right amount of them. It's those two things very important. And so what do we do here at the clinic? For everybody, we give them the nominal nutrient requirements. What is the nominal nutrient requirements? It's what the government calls the recommended daily allowance. So every patient who walks in here, we give them that minimal nutrient requirement. After we do your testing, we can now optimize your nutrient to what we call the optimal intake, because it then addresses the personalization and the precision of the imbalances that for you are very important. Not all of us have the same nutrient imbalances. Everyone is different. As you can tell when you do the sugar test, you can find out that the way some people respond to sugar in terms of sugar glucose metabolism is very different for different people. So the way our body optimizes nutrients is very different. So when we test, we then supplement. Don't forget that. That's why we call supplements or nutraceuticals, we call it nutritional supplementation. We're supplementing macronutrients. That means we're supplementing the food that you take. Plus, we are supplementing underlying imbalances that we find during the diagnostics. This is really critical because the body does not care about what you do not have. It needs what it needs. If you do not have it, there's a price to pay for that. There's impairment. So it's unforgiving. That's why chronic illness has become a very big issue, because we have not paid enough attention on ensuring optimal nutritional intake. So it's very important that you understand nominal intake, which is the R1 that we recommend to all our patients, which is the basic formula. But to be at the optimal level, you need to be tested so we know what you're short of. For example, most Americans are short of vitamin D. So when we give you the basic vitamin D, which is set at 2,000 units, right? Some people need the therapeutic value, which is around 50,000 units for about a month, to bring them to the required blood levels for vitamin D. If you look at the literature, vitamin D is a very critical vitamin for survival overall. So if you're short persistently of vitamin D, then the illnesses will arise that come from that deficiency. So it's very important that we understand this whole area. Are there any questions on this before I go to the next section? Yes, and
I have a question. How about the curcumin and herb?
That's what we're going to now, right now. Yeah, you stole my thunder. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just hold on one second. Very important question. She's asking about phytonutrients and the bioavailability issues of phytonutrients. That's really the next topic we're going to be exploring.
Okay.
Yeah, what was the next question?
Next question is, you said it's low energy. Is that something to do with people who has low blood sugar?
No. Hypoglycemia does not translate to low energy or low fatigue. It does not. Okay? If you crave sugar, it's because you have an underlying dysfunction. The mitochondria is optimized to say if there is no sugar, carbohydrates, or proteins, it will use fat. So people who run marathons go through that dark zone around mile 17 to mile 22 when they really want to give up. That is when the mitochondria is switching from gas to electric. Gas is sugar, electric is fat. During that switching period, the body goes into ketosis, when I start burning fat. So you cannot say I don't have energy because I didn't eat sugar. That is actually a diabetic issue. If your body craves sugar and you need sugar, then there is a problem. Can you light the sage so we can drive these flies away? Please, thank you. The sage is back there. Ask Grace, she'll show you where to get it. Okay, any other questions on that? Yes.
Yeah, you addressed about the upper level and lower level, correct?
Mm-hmm.
My question is that, is there an adverse effect of taking micronutrients above the upper level?
No. Well, it's a very important question, but it is rare for anybody to take above. Yes.
So it's safe
So
to be
it's
in
okay?
within range?
No. Well, you need to find out your deficiency, and clinically we'll give you what we call the therapeutic levels for you. And we measure in your blood to find out that some people take it and they metabolize. It doesn't hold in the blood. We want it to stay in the blood. And that's why we run Vibrant America. We need it in the blood and we need to see it in the cells. So some people would have high content in the blood, but there's nothing inside the cell. So there's an absorption, a bioavailability issue. So all of that are challenges that we have to struggle. So a lot of people just say, oh, you don't overdose on supplements. Well, no, the real issue is, do we have enough in the blood and do we have enough in the cells? That's the critical issue. The body is optimized to excrete anything that's excess. The engine works perfectly, so stop worrying about that, right? If it is excess, the body will excrete it out. But,
So there's nothing like taking too many vitamins?
well, I don't know, based on what? That's
too many. There's nothing as in taking too much supplement, is what you're saying?
No, there is nothing like taking
No
too much
consequences.
nutrients.
Okay.
What is the problem is taking too much calories.
So,
Yes, eating McDonald's all day or pizzas. There's no nutrient there. It's all high glycemic foods. Okay, are we clear about that? You have question, Kathy?
Yeah, I just
Loud.
want to know. Yeah, I just want to know vitamin D 50,000, right?
Units, yes.
Units, right? So for, let's say for individual, let's say we want to, some friends said that I want to have a vitamin D supplement.
Where's my vitamin D, Grace? We sold it all?
So, no, the last one.
Okay, quickly. All right. So this is the therapeutic. Yeah, I wanted this one. This is the therapeutic one.
Yes.
So this is the 50,000. You see, it's high potency supplementation. So you take this for people who really have low vitamin B, and it's for aggressive nutritional support. So a lot of people have very, very low. So it's high potency, and so you would take this, and typically it is under control of our clinicians, and we would monitor your vitamin D level so that we keep it at the high level. You know, we do the same thing with people who have cancer, and we're going to be talking about in later lectures about high levels of vitamin C to really trigger and move into what we call the oxidant architecture of vitamin C to fight cancer, right? The same thing with high levels of vitamin D. So we use this high potency levels, 50,000 IUs. Typically, I take the 10,000 daily, but I start with this for about a month to really bring my levels up. Then I go on that daily. Some people take the 5,000, and this one's come with K. This one doesn't come with K because K helps with the absorption of vitamin D, being an oil-soluble vitamin, right? So K, this one also comes with K. That's the 10,000 unit. The 50,000 unit is recommended you take with a fatty food when you're eating or oily food, because it's going to help with the absorption of vitamin D. Okay, it's a very critical therapeutic issue. A lot of Americans, more than 95%, are short on vitamin D. Okay, so any more questions on that?
So you will recommend us to take the
No, I will recommend that you start taking R1, which is the nominal requirements. When we test your blood and we see your vitamin D levels are low, then we will intervene at that level. Or if you really want to boost your immune system, you may want to take that once a month to really up your level, especially at this time where we have COVID-19. You want to up the levels of vitamin D that you have. Did you not find the sage? The sage is at the back cupboard. All right. What? Okay. Yeah, do it only inside here. You don't have to do it back there. All right. Okay. So are we good? Any more questions? Any more questions? No? Okay. So now let's start talking about what we call herbals, botanicals, and phytonutrients. And phyto. So across all of this, every culture has developed a series of things that they use that have significant therapeutic impact, right? They have things that they have used that have significant therapeutic impact. For example, berberine. Berberine, turmeric. We know it mostly as curcumin. We have ginkgo. So we have a lot of phytonutrients that in TCM, what they call traditional Chinese medicine, and in other cultures, we've developed, like echinacea, a lot of different plant, what we call phytonutrients, that have significant therapeutic value. So if you notice, Grace, can you bring me our immune product, Turiva? And yeah, Turiva, it's under immune, quick. And bring me, we have a curcumin product, so bring me Turiva and then bring me the Transfactor Immune or Turiva, yeah. Thanks. So I want to show you a couple of products that are used in China. Thank you. So let's look at this product called Turiva. So Turiva is a complete turmeric matrix solution with curcumin for underlying inflammation and antioxidants. So if you look at the way COVID-19 attacks, principally the attack architecture is one that is around the inflammation architecture. So if you look in here, I'll read to you what are some of the nutrients in here. So we have the turmeric root extract, and it contains curcuminoids and turmeric, right? That's what this one contains. And it is a very, very powerful solution, especially this time when we have a lot of challenges with. And then let's look at another one. It's C3 curcumin complex. This one has curcumin powder. It has, sorry, my eyesight. It has curcumin, it has some different things, and you can look at that later. Sorry, I cannot even read it. My eyesight is not that good. I may borrow some of your young eyes to look at this. And then this one is the very interesting one. This is one of our most important immune products, right? Especially phytonutrients were really around our digestive architecture that is the conductor of our immune system. And I'm going to be talking just shortly about SBI Protect. So if we look at Transfer Immune, this one is naturally nurtures healthy natural killer levels, natural killer cells. It promotes healthy Th1, Th2 modulation. These are the cells that are leukocytes that actually attack all the viruses, and the lymphocytes, they are like the people who are traveling, patrolling, watching our gates. So let's look at what is inside. It has beta-glucans, which is a phytonutrient. It has astragalus, which is actually a Chinese plant that is really critical for the immune system. And it has shiitake mushroom, and it has a lot of other things. And you can always look at that and you see that the supplements that are outside of the standard micronutrients are in this space of where we call herbal, botanicals, and phytonutrients. Culturally, in Western culture, they were not used to this. So if you look at the history of Western culture, they went to the East for spices. So in the old culture, a lot of this was called spices. And in the old culture, you didn't take them as supplements. They were added to food as part of the process. In winter, you would have a lot of immune additions to the soup, whether it's ginger chicken soup or whatever. In the summer, because of the different things about sunstroke and that, the spices that were added were for the optimal nutrition issues. So in the old culture, or in Chinese culture, if you were sick, then they will boil a concentrated amount of the leaves for you to drink. The challenge with that is that there are issues of toxicity because we don't know how clean the separation and the preparation was. Then there are issues also of what is the amount that is adjusted for you. So it's okay to drink Chinese medicine, but you are really not sure about the levels of toxicity that you're getting. These supplements are manufactured at really high levels of purity and separation. And so that's the difference. So there's nothing wrong in going to buy curcumin powder from the Indian shop. And some people take that with a dry pepper raw in the morning. It's really very good for you. The only challenge is that you don't know what the levels of toxicity is going to be inside of that. Okay? So when we talk about the issues of herbals, botanicals, and phytonutrients, we specifically talk about curcumin. As we know, and I need to emphasize this to all of you, curcumin is one of the most important phytonutrients because of its inflammatory impact and antioxidant impact. The two of those issues are at the source of chronic illness. And if you notice, Indian food has a lot of turmeric and curcumin on a daily basis. It is calming the inflammation naturally from the food as spice from what they eat. So very critical. The second one is berberine. Can you bring me berberine? Berberine is a natural phytonutrient for lowering blood sugar. And what berberine does is that berberine leaves, thank you, I take this every day for managing your blood sugar. It's for healthy glucose metabolism. Actually, berberine works very closely with your probiotics because the probiotics are optimizing metabolism and also optimizing how much sugar is absorbed in your stomach. So both of these things actually work very powerfully well together, and it is important. So we're going to talk about probiotics next, but matching berberine with your probiotics provides very significant benefits overall for the problem that we all have, which is the glycemic impact from the foods that we eat. What's the glycemic impact? It's the amount of sugar that is laden in that food. And for each of us, it's different. Some people will eat a mango and the sugar is this way. Some people eat a mango and it spikes because it is how sensitive your body is to sugar metabolism. So it's a very important issue that we address. So now let's talk about probiotics. So the handout has been loaded. If you want to go online, we didn't print any for you today. I want to talk about a very important product. So can you check on your phones and you'll find the hangout? Have we updated the hangout? So let's talk about this product, SBI Protect Powder. So SBI Protect Powder is a product from Orthomolecular that addresses what we call immunoglobulins. Immunoglobulins, and so this is the notes you're going to find when you download it from your phone. It has the highest concentration of immunoglobulin delivery available. And there are 43 human studies proving efficacy and safety for a wide variety of gastrointestinal and immune challenges. It's a broad spectrum microbial and toxin binding capabilities. It's the only serum-derived bovine. What is serum-derived bovine? It actually comes from cows, from cattle, right? So if you are vegetarian, I don't think you can take this. So these are concentrated and then given in this form. So let's just talk about immunoglobulins. Whenever I look at stress, I want to go back to stress because stress is very important. When we're talking about stress, and you can go look at my old lectures, there are 4 parts of stress. We have perception, we have sleep, we have sugar, and we have inflammation. And most of the inflammation comes from the gut lining. And the gut and the immune system, the gut is the conductor of the immune system. So these inflammatory signals is what SBI works on, called the immunoglobulins. Okay, it's a very, very important issue. The first place that COVID-19 is going to find inflammation is in your stomach. And then it will be carried to other parts of the body. So it's very important that we understand. So let me just quickly read you, and this is from a study about immunoglobulins. So it is the studies in mucosal immunity, decreased mucosal immunity. Listen to this very powerfully. Decreased mucosal immunity is an underlying cause of many health challenges. And emerging research highlights the importance of targeted immunoglobulin therapies to address barrier function in the GI tract. That's why I take a little scoop of this every day, because you want to address the barrier function issues, right? In patients with immune challenges, who are patients with immune challenges? These are patients who always catch the flu. So if you have immune challenges, you're always sick, flu, cough, and diarrhea. You know you have immune challenges. Oral consumption of concentrated immunoglobulins has been shown to significantly enhance immunity. Studies show immunoglobulins binding antigens in the GI tract can reduce the immune burden and support normal repair of the mucosal lining, strengthen passive immunity, and protect the body by helping maintain microbial balance. Again, guys, this is really very important why we are talking about immunoglobulins and probiotics. It's really very important. The stomach, the GI tract, manages 80 to 90% of the immune system, because it is in the GI tract that all the poisons, all the infections, all the toxins come in. That is where our main army is located, right? Our main Southern Command and Northern Command, as the US would say, is located in the stomach. That's why the stomach is the #1 place where illness begins. Gas, bloating, diarrhea. That's why you have to memorize the Bristol stool chart. Every time you poo, you have to look at the poo. I know, look, it is your poo. So you can look at it. Don't make like, oh, you know, I remember when Karen was young, when she looked at her poo, she'll say, whose poo is that? Yeah, she thought it wasn't her poo, right? She thought it was somebody else's poo, right? Now she's grown up, she thinks, I don't remember when we used to change her diapers. right? Her poo, she used to pee a really mean poo, right? So, and we could tell from the smell of, no, not Karen's, we can tell from the smell of a child's poo how healthy they are. And that's one of the big signs for autism. If a child's poo is very smelly all the time, there are big indications of a gut-brain issue, right? Very smelly poo from a young child are big signs for autism. Most autistic children or schizophrenia patients have very, very, very smelly poo. So if you go into the bathroom and you're like, this is serious, you know that somebody who has mental illness has been in the bathroom.
Oh my God.
Yes. And you want to just take them straight to the hospital, right, for some support. So let's spend some time and talk about gut health, okay? Probiotics, they're my friends. Actually, it is the most important supplement you should take. So let's talk about these digestive enzymes because they are very, really critical, right? And there are 4 of them that you should take every day. Let's talk about those 4. So you should take fiber, which is prebiotic. You should take the probiotic, which is the bacteria itself. You should take enzymes, right? You should take digestive enzymes. Let's start talking about that. And then in the digestive enzyme category, we also have the gluten. So whenever you eat pasta or you eat bread, you need to take something to break it down. So let me just walk you through. So that's the gluten enzyme. So whenever you eat bread or pasta or anything that has gluten, it's important you break it down. Why? If gluten isn't broken down, it compromises the gut function and causes leaky gut. And what is leaky gut? A hole in your gut lining. And through that hole, bacteria and viruses will enter your bloodstream. Then you start acting crazy. Okay? So all those crazy people who the police shooting, you know, they should take some Spectrazyme. Okay. So we have fiber. And for people who cannot poo, right, or they're constipated, the fiber is critical for that because it slows down the flow of food through the digestive tract, giving the bacteria enough time to break it down and for absorption. Fiber is critical for your health. It allows the bacteria in the stomach to have soccer games with the food and ensure that it's all broken down so it's properly absorbed. Then your poo becomes a number 4 or a number 3 poo. That's how you get that beautiful long poo that is like a snake. You're like, you have to stand up for the rest of it to drop because it's so long, right? And you're like, oh, there's a snake in my ass, right? But it came out already, right? So let's look at, and this is the one I take. These are pancreatic enzymes. These are really, people say, this saves you from cancer. Pancreatic enzymes are critical for whenever you eat. If you are both 30, 40 years old, we all have depletion of enzymes. You must take pancreatic enzymes, or what we call digestive enzymes, to support the breakdown of macronutrients. right? And then we have Probiotics Supreme. This one requires refrigeration. All the products that we call Supreme or Synergy are products that are long acting, because most probiotics, the cheap ones I know you buy from our friendly places, I don't want to call them, when you buy cheap probiotics, they're all destroyed in the upper end of the stomach by the acids. The probiotics we're giving you are built in a protected way so they can pass through the acid into the intestines, where it is less acidic and where the probiotics are actually required. When you buy cheap probiotics, it's all destroyed in the stomach. So you're wasting your little money by being cheap, right? So you want to make sure you get very good probiotics, and you can get them in combination. And this one is just an alternative manufacturer of the same digestives. Okay? So probiotics, why am I talking so much about probiotics? Because when you eat, we spoke about nutrition. This is under nutrition. When you take macronutrients, micronutrients, and phytonutrients, we need to break them down so the body can absorb them. So probiotics, fiber, and prebiotics and enzymes are critical in that nutritional architecture to ensure what we call, big word, bioavailability. What is bioavailability? I know it's a very big word. It means that if you take something, at least it should get to your cells. If not, you're wasting your time, right? So bioavailability means that all the nutrients that we take in, we want to make sure that they are available in the cellular machinery for what is required for the different things that are required, right? And so when we run the diagnostics here, Vibrant America looks at serum. What is serum? It is the liquid in which the red blood cells and blood flows, right? When we look at serum, we can find the nutrient quantity. That's what we call extracellular. And then Vibrant crushes the white and red blood cells and looks what is inside to see what the intracellular component is. And that gives us a measure of bioavailability. How much you have taken, that it has been absorbed into your blood, and how much is in the cell. So we are looking at three measures: how much you took, how much is in the blood, and how much is in the cell. And so when we look at patients around that architecture, we might say, your issue, you have challenges with absorption. We want to fix that with probiotics and enzymes. And then we want to give you the therapeutic dose to ensure that at the cellular level, you have the right amount of nutrients, which is then what we call optimal nutrition. Any questions before I go to the final parts on that? We're good? All right. So how do we then address this overall? So in the architecture of what we have designed at Anti-Fragility Health is that when a patient arrives for the first time, we put them on what we call R1. Our recommendation one is the RDA. The RDA is the minimum required for nutrients. And the RDA is published by the FDA and the NIH. That is the basic amount that everyone should have. Are we clear about that? And on top of that, we have added extra omega-3. We've added probiotics. We've added CLA. What else have we added? Yes, we've added some estrogen for estrogen metabolism, and then the enzymes, yes, and the digestive enzyme. So some people say, oh, but that is too much. This is your basic nutrient requirements, especially if you're above 40 years old. This is critical, R1. You need this on a daily basis. And it's the minimum amount. As we just said, the enzyme is critical. A lot of people suffer from estrogen metabolism. Why? Because there are lots of estrogen that is leaking into our food system. Like a lot of people eat soy, very bad for you. Soy has too much plant estrogen. And because the cows and chicken are fed a lot of nonsense, there's a lot of extra estrogen leaking through our food system. So we give you something to really purge out that estrogen from your system. That's why a lot of Western men are becoming women. They have too much estrogen, right? And then we put extra conjugated lanoic acid, the probiotics, and the omega-3. Then we go into what we call R2. R2 addresses the 10 clinical imbalances that we would normally find from your diagnostics, right? We'll look at cardiometabolic, we'll look at gastrointestinal, we'll look at immune, we'll look at hormones, we'll look at energy, we'll look at circulation, and there are 10 of them, and this will provide the extra nutrient requirements. So when we add R1 plus R2, we begin to achieve optimal nutrition plus R0, which is macronutrients. So R0 is macronutrients, R1 is the RDA, and R2 are the extra nutrients you read. So when we give you the formula, which is the basis of how we make our recommendations, it's based on R0 plus R1 plus R2. If you're very healthy, we'll give you, and what is R0? I said it in our last lecture, which is nutritional biochemistry. 4 things: calorie restriction, diet restriction, time restricted feeding, and intermittent fasting. So these 4 strategies build your RO. Okay, it's very important that you understand how I know it's complicated, look, but if you don't understand it, look, later you'll come and have problems and we'll give you medication.
Hilarious.
Right?
That's what you need.
Well, you know, that's why many people are on medication. Because they didn't pay attention. They say, oh, Charles, my head hurts. It's too complicated. I'm not God. He made it complicated. So we have to understand the complicated architecture that he's delivered. So it's important that you understand this. And then we've added R3, which are the extra lifestyle things that you may want to add. For example, we have nutrients for exercise. We have nutrients for people who cannot sleep, you know, and we have other extra nutrients that are very helpful because we already have research that says that if you keep waking up frequently at night, you are a strong candidate for cardiometabolic issues. So sleeping well at night is a critical health factor that you need to really manage. So if you're not sleeping well, you need some sleep aids that's going to make you sleep. I take melatonin and magnesium every night. And that allows me to sleep because sometimes my brain can't go to sleep and I wake up around 3, 4 a.m. and my brain starts running. So the only way that I can sleep properly till 6 a.m., even if I wake up once to go pee, is to take melatonin and magnesium before I go to bed. So I want to close by saying that when we develop these strategies of R0 plus R1 plus R2, and in some cases R3, we build what we are calling personalization for your nutrition and precision, because we are using your labs to achieve that nutrient formula. So it's very important that you understand the architecture we have built around this. So everybody, when we make recommendations for supplements, it's because we actually are tying it into that model. What is your diet? And you cannot lie. Most people say they eat well, then we run their blood and there are no nutrients. I'm sorry, you've not been eating well. Your blood cannot lie. If we don't see the nutrients in your blood, it means you've not been eating well. We don't care whether you buy it from Farmer's Market or Trader Joe's. We want to see the nutrients in your blood. Yes, Trevor Love is on. Hi, Trevor. Love you, my brother. Okay. Anything else? Any questions? All right. So thank you. So this is where we're going to end our nutritional wellness. Again, we have discussed nutritional wellness. We've discussed emotional wellness. Karen missed that one. Emotional wellness is what's killing most Americans, right? Physical wellness too is killing most Americans because they can't get off their fat asses and go exercise. And then environmental wellness, which is to do with toxicity and the other things about that we get. So those 4 areas is what this clinic focuses on to ensure that you achieve a complete, at a very simple level, because we could get really complicated, you achieve wellness in all areas that are critical. So thank you for joining, and see you next week.